Welcome once again to Truthscript Tuesday. It is still Tuesday, though it's late as I am recording this. There's actually a number of articles on the Truthscript website that I think are very much worth your time. And that's why I do want to say up front that whether or not there is a Truthscript Tuesday episode, you can always go to truthscript.com. And if you go to the top, there's a little subscribe button right here. And you can type your email address in and you can get access to emails that will keep you up to date on the Truthscript articles, or you can just go to the website, of course. And there are updates there frequently. We try to put out about 3 articles a week, and this week is no exception. We have a great article by Matt George entitled Young Men and Christian Nationalism, an Opportune Moment for the Church. And in fact, this one was already read. We're toying around with how to do this because it's a lot of manpower to read every article and put it out there in an understandable form. Some people appreciate that because they don't have the time to read articles. They'd rather listen to them. But we're figuring out how to do that. But this was one of the ones that is read. It's out there on iTunes, as I understand it, and YouTube. You can go to truthscript.com, and if you scroll down, there's a whole YouTube section here. So you can, that's an easy way to get on the YouTube subscription on that particular website. And if you go to iTunes, you can just type in Truthscript Live and subscribe there. But there's 2 other articles, and these are the ones that I want to really hone in on that concern music. And, music is something that I'm a minister of music. I guess you could, I don't know if that's the official title. I think it is. If you could call it that. But I'm the guy who kind of administrates the musical ministries at the particular church I go to. And it's not something that I'm new to. I've done that for years. And I've played guitar in church and sang for years. And so, music is something that I at least have somewhat of a familiarity with it. Now, I might not be as skilled as some, and, it's a smaller church. So if it was a larger church, I may be eliminated at a at a lower stage or something. So I'm not claiming to be necessarily a great musician, but I think, tend to know good music when I hear it. And of course, for church, the main thing is you want music that suits the congregation, that they can sing to, so that they can offer up praises to the Lord. And if they can't hear the words, or if it's in another language, it's kind of meaningless to them. If they can't sing it because it's too hard melodically, then we don't use songs like that. We use songs that the congregation can sing, that they can have full participation in at any level. So the key has to be such that people can join in and sing harmonies or whatever. Whatever they sing, they can join in no matter what their range is. And so I've been there for the worship wars, as they call it. And I remember when, this was years and years ago, but I remember when more contemporary styles were first introduced into the church that I now attend. It was it was difficult for some people. And that was done, I think it was navigated very well. It was done with a lot of understanding. And of course, there's along the way, there's people who did not maybe respond in the most mature ways. But the thing about music is there's both objective and subjective elements. And I think this first article gets at that quite nicely. And it navigates these particular disagreements in a way that's full of wisdom and experience. And of course, coming from someone with a very biblical conviction. And that would be Mark Coppinger. Mark Coppinger is a philosopher. He's a professor, or was a professor. He's retired now, but he was at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. And he wrote an article. It's probably the longest article we published, called Body, Life, Music. And he gets into some of this stuff. He starts off by, and I should say, because I'm not going to read this word for word, this is a very well-written article, and it's got a lot of little hooks in it, a lot of interesting words, a lot of illustrations that are delightful, and little asides because of Mark Coppinger's vast experience. I mean, he even talks about at one point that he had played, I think it was trumpet, in a band with Bill Clinton. So there's little things in there that are very interesting. But he starts off by talking about how every church has an aesthetic, which he defines as a conglomeration of impacts on the senses, whether visual, auditory, gustatory, olfactory, or tactual. And so he's saying that every church has a certain feel, right? A certain mood, a certain aesthetic. And that this is inescapable, essentially. I mean, this isn't something you can't choose to not have an aesthetic. You're going to have one inescapably. So there is no like vacuous or neutral option here. Like you're going to be communicating something with the way that you dress and the way you sing and the way your style, essentially. And then he gets into how there's a wide range of traditions out there, musically speaking, that can inform Christians and be used, musical forms that can be used in corporate worship. And he gives a number of examples of that from different styles um, and his own experience. And he talks about the uniqueness of Christianity, that you go to a Christian music shop and there's just there used to be those. I don't know if they still exist, but there's a wide range of musical forms. But not every religion has this kind of thing. And he compares it to Hindu, and he compares it to Judaism, which actually does have quite a bit of music, but it's not as wide ranging as Christian music. And of course, Islamic music is that. I mean, it's a musical wasteland. That's what he says. And Christians are unique in this sense, and maybe we don't realize it, but we are a very musical people. We use all kinds of forms to worship and praise God, and and that's appropriate. We're trying to use all the keys on the piano. We're trying to um, we're trying to praise Him with every means at our disposal. Now, he goes on. He talks about two colleagues at Wheaton that helped him navigate music, and Harold Best was the dean of the conservatory, and then he talks about um, that. Let's see, who's the other guy? Uh, Harold Best, and then Vida Chenoweth, and that these were two people very accomplished in music who helped him understand music at a deeper level in Christianity. And he said it's the words mostly. He says that he had a conviction that it's the words, not the music. And in 1980, he was moderating a Wheaton panel discussion, Wheaton College or University. And the administration's prerequisite for hosting the school's first Christian rock band featuring Larry Norman, Randy Stonehill, and Daniel Amos Band. Now, I might be showing my youth and inexperience. I don't know who these people are, actually. Maybe I should. But this was a Christian rock band. And he said Harold Best and him, and he shared the stage with Norman Stonehill and English poet Steve Turner and Stephen Lawhead of Campus Life magazine. Um, and of course, he was thinking of how Martin Luther used drinking songs, at least tunes from them, and put different lyrics to glorify God. And they had this panel discussion on Christian rock and whether or not you could justify it based on that logic. And he says one student, he said, stands up in the middle of this panel, I guess, or maybe at the end, and he testifies that he didn't object to our evening scheduled fare, but that he wouldn't be there. And he just said, sex, drugs, rock and roll, it all goes together. I can't be there. And he basically got the point that associations are something to take into consideration. The thing I like about this, though, is there's a prudential element to it. I think that Mark Coppinger is looking at this practically speaking, and he's not looking at it in an ideological way where it's like, well, here's the rule. You either can use songs that have tunes that have been appropriated or used or associated with worldly things, or you can't. It's not a question of can or can't. It's what's best. And I think that's the way to approach this. It's a wisdom issue more than anything else. And he says that his point is not that any particular forms of music are utterly unfit to convey biblical messages, but rather that we needed to go easy on rushing into them, all the while being wary of snark towards the reluctance. In the mid 1990s, he says, I took part in a Boston meeting connected to the Cambridge Declaration, which linked evangelicalism to the five solas of the Reformation. And he was on board, but he thought the declaration was so reformed that it was a bridge too far for excluding Arminians from the evangelical camp. And while he resonated with the words of disdain for 7-Eleven songs, which means when you have seven words repeated 11 times with numbering repetition of phrases like it's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, to pick one. He found it ironic that we were perfectly at ease with the sevenfold amens in the hymnals of James Montgomery voice. And so he says, while I was pleased to meet in Cambridge and with great graphics on the program and stationery, I tired of the consistent dismissal of PR. After all, they could have gone with a graffiti style get her done slogan instead of post tenebris lux. And why not issue the Kokomo Declaration? It would have been, he's very funny the way he writes, it would have been cheaper to meet in Cornfield, Indiana than Harvardish Cambridge. But we wanted to signal we were sophisticated churchmen, not fundamentalist rubes. That's PR. So let's go easy on the snark when it comes to the body of Christ. To thoughtful, even bold criticism, but not so much to taste-based cancellation. And so and then in a section titled "Musical Eating Disorders," I told you this is a long article for Truthscript at least. He talks about that there's a great variety in genres of film that he likes, and they convey different emotions. And I think this is a really good point. You have your tear jerkers and your action and I mean, different films will inspire different kinds of things. And he thought about this in connection with the waves of Christian contemporary music and the Technicolor productions with the Skywalker sound, or as close as you can get to it given limited budgets. And he says, I think of an Oliver Twistian congregant bringing his bowl to the CCM bound music administrator saying, please, sir, might we have some Charles Wesley, Martin Luther, Ian Bartlett, and he goes on. And while we're at it, could we have fewer stylizing embellishments? Some of it's okay, but don't you wish, analogously, that more sporting events would start with the plain old Star Spangled Banner without the jazz and blues tweaks? Now, you might think this is a guy who's this is his opinions, and that's all, and they are opinions. But I will tell you this: I have actually a copy here because he gave me a copy. Mark Coppinger was the editor of this, Apologetical Aesthetics. Mark Coppinger's not someone who's new to aesthetics. This is something he thinks about. This is something that he thinks a lot about. That's why I think this article is definitely worth your time, because what he's getting at is that there are different emotions conveyed, and there are different through different styles, and they produce different effects in people. And just like a diet, you want to have a balanced diet. You don't want to necessarily eat one thing, as in, and this isn't an argument, by the way, this isn't, I'm not saying like this is an argument for diversity in the sense of like, well, we must have other cultures to inform our understanding and our lens or something. No. This is more of just you could have actually like one particular genre of music in a way. I mean, it's possible that can strike all these different notes in people. I mean, you can have, if you listen to the radio, let's say, I mean, you can listen to, I listen to a lot of country music, at least I used to on the radio. And you have sad songs, you have happy songs, you have songs that motivate you towards certain things, and songs that probably bring about thoughts that you shouldn't have, and you turn it off. And you have all kinds of different songs that are compositions with lyrics and melodies, and they produce different things in you based on the tempo and the instrumentation and the voices and the lyrics. And so what he's saying, though, is that having a wide variety of those things will produce different effects, and that's actually a good thing, and it's a beautiful thing. And why not have a wide array of these kinds of things? Why, even what he's getting at with the national anthem, it's so often done in such a jazzy kind of syncopated way. You don't even know what the real, the pure sort of original national anthem sounded like. I mean, that's kind of like it's become so boring, right? It's just one thing all the time. So he says that let's see, I'm going to actually skip ahead here. He talks about people who um, were even getting down on "I Saw the Light" and songs like that, which is interesting because now, like, who would get down on that? But there was a time those songs were newer and they were considered less traditional. So he ends the piece though by reflecting on a time that he was leading a church plant, and they had many accomplished musicians there, and they did many different styles: Southern gospel, bluegrass, traditional hymnody, minor key Jewish folk, up tempo and down tempo spirituals, and CCM with all kinds of instruments. And he said that when his Southern Baptist students showed up and asked how they framed their music, he said that they insisted on orthodoxy and aim for quality. But he said, I'd add, it depends on who shows up in the kaleidoscope of town and gown congregants. It was body life music, drawing on the complementary gifts and talents of those in the fellowship and concerned that we give all in the body a chance to join full voiced in the singing of their beloved genres. And that's, I think that's an excellent way of approaching this. And that's the way I've tried to approach things at my own church. I mean, you use a wide variety of forms that reflect the people in your congregation, because what's the point? The point is, in worship music, is promoting the worship of our Lord. So if it's a form that it's just, it could even be, and I'll say this is not Mark Coppinger saying it, but I'll just say it. You could have a situation where you have a congregation that's just, they don't know anything about music and they need super simple, right? That's just where they're at. They're not going to be able to do harmonies. They can't join in. Now, the goal hopefully is, if you have the resources to get people kind of up to speed on that. But the church, as an institution, is not that's not the main purpose of the church, to educate people in music. I mean, there was a time when people used to become more equipped in that way. They just, through life and through their own educations, came to know music. But that may not be the case today, and that may demand simpler forms and you just can't do the complex things. I was even talking with someone recently about doing like Handel's Messiah or something, like the Hallelujah chorus, at least I should say, not all of Handel's Messiah, but doing something like that. And I just don't know that we could pull it off. Trying to lead the congregation in different parts while other people, it's just too complex. But there may be other places where that kind of thing's perfectly appropriate. You can do all kinds of things because the people there know music better. And that's just one element, right? You may be in a place that, if you go to like certain places in Africa, it's going to be louder, and there's going to be more dancing and more, a lot more acoustic drums and things like that. And it's different. And it doesn't mean you can't critique or evaluate different forms of music, but you should be at least open to different cultures are going to express themselves in different ways. And there's going to be ways that are more accustomed to them because of their shared experience and their past and so forth. And so it's nothing wrong with teaching Western music to non-Western peoples. There's also nothing wrong, though, with conveying worship of our Lord in non-Western forms. So anyway, I appreciate it because he gets out. He puts it more in the category of prudence and wisdom and keeping your mindset on the end goal, and not trying to come up with some kind of a rigid ideology by which to create rules that govern the sounds that are used in church. There are principles that we draw from, but there's not a rigidity that says, well, rock and roll is bad. You can't ever use rock and roll and that kind of thing. So anyway, I appreciated the article. That's on the Truthscript website right now, Mark Coppinger. And there's another song, and I like this one a lot too. This one's called Mining Old Hymnals. Mining Old Hymnals. And this song, actually, this is by someone who came to the retreat last year, and he is a musician in let me see if it says Faith Community Church in Woodstock, Georgia. So he's actually, he plays a number of different instruments. I think he had, I'm trying to remember what he had. He had like a flute or something when he came up. I don't remember. Yeah, I think he brought an instrument with him and he was showing us a little bit. But his name's Matt, and he writes this article about finding old hymns. And the thing is, despite what I just said, and I agree with Mark Coppinger, I know he'd, I think, agree with this as well. There is something rich about music that has stood the test of time and lyrics that have stood the test of time in the church. And we tend to, it's like when you're mixing ingredients for food, right? You think, who was the first person to come up with a particular dish? And how many times did they fail and add too much salt, or they forgot a certain spice? And then, over time, though, they figured out the right combination to make it taste just right. Well, it's like that, I think, with music, too. You get songs that just stand the test of time. People keep singing them because they're so good, because they're well done. They hit the right notes. They're catchy, or they convey the emotion or complement the words, and do it in beautiful ways. And so it's good to kind of go back to some of these older songs that have stood the test of time. And his experience is that in a lot of Christian churches, people don't even know some of the hymns. And so he says many conservative Christians are longing for a previous era of traditional values, right? God honoring family relationships and the good old days when life was much more simple. It's like visiting a small, quaint town with, so there's this sort of like nostalgia that we have for a previous time. And he says, I suggest that by exploring the rich tradition of hymns, songs, prayers, and even Protestant liturgy from yesteryear, we can access those small, quaint towns right now. Great line. Yes. Going back and looking at these old musical forms transports you into the past in a way. There's a shared experience all of a sudden you have with people from hundreds of years ago. Songs they enjoyed, you're enjoying. Worship that they gave to God, you are now giving similar worship to God, hearing the same notes, singing the same words. In the past 30 years, there have been a number of prominent musicians and groups who have brought some old hymns back to life, so to speak. Before the Throne of God was one of them. That was an obscure hymn written in the 19th century. Sovereign Grace brought that back. Talks about other songs. And in fact, if we had time, I would play some of these, but he has some links in here for songs that you should listen to. He talks about how being raised in a Lutheran church, he got to know a lot of these traditional hymns, which was such a blessing to him. And he gives some great, this is great for music leaders. He gives a resource, advertisement or recommendation here for a traditional music, Christian traditional music resource. He says, everyone knows we are at a cultural crossroads and we long for a place where God can be glorified, his created order respected, and his commands obeyed. It discourages us and we tend to despair. However, we have access to uplifting music and lyrics that go back centuries. So good article for Christmas when we hear so many carols. Now, if you are interested in contributing to Truthscript, articles like the ones that I just reviewed, then you can scroll down to the bottom at truthscript.com and there is a publish tab. Click on that. And if you'd like to donate, we are a 501c3. You can click on the donate tab. And we'd appreciate any gift that you can give us. We have a lot more we'd like to do and are planning to do next year. And that goes forward by the grace of God and with your support. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. And this is Truthscript Tuesday. God bless.